Okay, we got a few more people joining. Welcome. We're going to start at the top of the hour. This topic is digital services with Arizona. The whole topic really is digital government. So we're asking for your questions that we'll get to in the Q&A section. Please put your questions and thoughts, comments into the chat. And Rob and I will be looking at those and pull those questions out during the Q&A. Thank you for being here. We're really glad you're here. One more minute and we'll kick things off. Glad you're all here. People keep coming in the room and we're really glad to see you here. We're going to start things right now. So thank you for joining us. Our theme today is Inspire, and you will definitely be inspired by our session here. We want to thank you, all of our daily content sponsors for today's day in our conference, Accenture, IBM, and Microsoft. And the sponsor for this session is Accenture. Now, today, I want to remind you all that immediately following this session, there will be a 15-minute virtual hallway discussion and then a final session of the day, which is titled Resilience in State Government. That starts at 3:45. Our breakout session here is Digital Services with Arizona, a conversation with J.R. Sloan, the CIO for the state of Arizona. As we get into this discussion, think about what the term digital government means to you. And please put your questions and comments in the chat. Our moderator is Rob Cohen from Accenture. Our special guest, J.R. Sloan, CIO for the great state of Arizona. Rob, I'm turning it over to you.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Eric. And thank you, everyone, for joining JR and I today to talk about digital government in the state of Arizona. Super excited to go through this real quickly with everyone here for over the next half an hour. And as Eric said, as time permits, we'll take questions there at the end. Today I am joined by JR, and we've got a quick agenda to go through with everyone on digital government. And so in the spirit of keeping the time here, I'm going to kick it over to you, and let's talk about what's going on in digital government in the state of Arizona.
All right, thanks, Rob. Thanks, Eric. Great to be here today. Hope everyone's enjoyed a great conference. I've really enjoyed the session so far, as well as the hallway conversations. To get started, I want to share a little bit, just kind of throw some things out as far as what I've seen happen over the past year or so in Arizona. And then I wanted to get into more of a looking forward, really trying to key off of that theme of Inspire and put together some questions and topics for Rob and I to talk about in kind of more of a fireside chat format. And we'll, again, really welcome your questions as we get to that section and make sure that we're hitting on things that are going to be interesting for you. So one of the things I wanted to start with is just sharing some of the, what the Department of Administration and the scope of services that we deliver directly, some of the things that have happened. So over the past fiscal year, so starting from July, so we were partway into the pandemic, 3 or 4 months in, till today, we've had 266 new services that were brought online. Now, online means, okay, in one way, shape, or form, we've eliminated the need for pen, paper, fax machines, on-site, anything, and that can be fulfilled. As we've tracked this over time, we've done over 2,000 services, bringing them end-to-end digital experiences to Arizona's citizens and residents since 2016. The next thing is we have focused on trying to bring some standardization across our state websites. And one of the ways that we did that was to bring a content management system based on a platform. We are now actually coming up on our next generation of updating that. And we currently host 179 of public-facing state agency websites on that platform. And the benefit that really brings to our state agencies is they can focus on the content and they don't have to focus on the managing the platform, a lot of the underlying technology. One of the things I think I'm really seeing grown for Arizona over the past year is the adoption of electronic signatures. over 300,000 in the past 12 months. And that's a mix of Adobe Sign from a product perspective, as well as DocuSign. Last thing is Department of Administration. We run one of the payment processing solutions, and with that, we service many of the, I'll say, medium and smaller agencies. Larger agencies like the Department of Transportation have a separate one processing all of the motor vehicle registration renewals and that type of thing. But our platform ran transactions of $147 million and over 500,000 transactions. So that's something that we actually stood up in-house a few years ago with some partnerships and have had good success with. So we definitely saw an increase in adoption. And I want to talk a little about sort of like what was the effect of the pandemic and how did that show up? And I've already talked a little bit about it. We saw adoption of digitizing forms, e-signatures, adding payment. It was like, I'll say, closing that last mile relative to digital services. And this was really helping our agency partners be able to, digitally serve their constituents, where they were no longer having to, bring checks into the office or fill out the form. And the other thing, and I know that's been mentioned in some other forums, is the real adoption of chatbots. I've seen good adoption. I think it was a great pickup for a number of agencies over the course of the pandemic to really help, I think, scale service. That was, I think, a key component of what chatbots brought for us. I want to talk about a couple of the sites that sort of reflect what I've been talking about. So our Department of Motor Vehicles, they had just completed a 5-year big modernization. And so when you think about something that touches just about every citizen in your state, that's going to be your motor vehicle division. With that, you'll see kind of the lower right-hand corner, they've got the chat bot. Click the chat there, as well as you see a lot of the more modern design elements and so forth. We did a webinar with NASCIO probably about a month ago now, and we talked about what this experience brought. So a key transformation in this experience was previously when you interacted with our motor vehicle division doing your registration or any kind of renewal, it was anonymous. And so you pretty much had to sort of validate your identity without using a login to proceed with the transaction. Now we offer not just a login, but you can also perform multi-factor authentication as well as high trust transactions through the digital driver's license application. So here in the lower right, you see your login experience can be I enter my username and password. The MVD Now site will pop up a QR code, and with your phone that has been registered as your secured device, you are validating your identity at a higher level. And now we can do things like digital title transfers that can all be conducted online. So that's been really transformational in terms of the types of services that are available for our citizens. Another example I want to bring forward was our public services portal for our public safety department. Again, you'll see here, I'll say, ask the question, what is it? How can we help you today? What are we understand what the key things are you're probably here for. We're trying to get you to those transactions quickly. Again, you'll see the implementation of the chatbot. And again, this was just a good success, really bringing these services that previously weren't online in a I'll say a good user experience with our public safety department. The last one I want to touch on is our vaccine registration system. The reason I wanted to talk about this was this solution was, I think, a great example of an agile project. This site was stood up in about 3 weeks to start with, and we've been iterating on it since. And it's been a great example to show back within the state agencies, even up to our executive, of how you can stand something up quickly and iterate on it. When this thing went live, I think we had maybe 50,000 appointments that we could make available, and we had 750,000 people that were lined up to get them. And so those appointments were gone, I think, in 20 to 30 minutes. And so we went from basically, a platform that was, there, but fairly idle to, it had to scale very quickly. And as we were going through those early cycles of vaccine registration, we would see, as we went through the weekly releases of appointments, the platform would spike for a day, even a few hours, and then it would sort of taper off. And what I'm really thrilled to say is that, this site has been recognized for a national award for its innovation and delivering vaccine registration. So that kind of touches on, I think a few of the, I'll say, high points and all successes for Arizona, but I still see some challenges. When you look across all these systems and the way I look at it, we're still operating somewhat in silos of excellence. We provide some great user experiences that are crafted by an agency, but do we present a common experience to our users? The identities aren't tied together on these things yet. And those are things that I'm talking with my agencies about, and that's where I really would like to see us make some progress, and where I see the future going for us is, if we can get a common identity in place, then we can start looking at how we start to better level out the user experience across these sites and help guide our citizens to better experiences and better outcomes. So coming up, how are we going to do that? One example that's on the table for Arizona is doing a business one-stop. I know a couple of other states have attacked this. This has been a process over the last couple of years, navigating more of the political and organizational issues to be able to apply technology across multiple agencies. So this has required an engagement from our executive office, our Secretary of State, our Department of Revenue, our Corporation Commission, and our Commerce Authority. All those parties had to come together and agree on how we were going to move forward with this, so that we can provide through this this application when it launches. We'll provide how to plan, start, run, do all the filings, and then ultimately, when you're ready to retire a business, all that will be handled through a single interface. We're going to be leveraging the identity and the identity capabilities of that ADOT motor vehicle platform. So I'm trying to eat, I'll say, drink my own champagne or eat my own dog food, however you want to term that, but try to lead by example with this cross-agency solution, which I think is really going to not just solve this problem, which is great in terms of economic recovery and economic development and underscoring our governor's focus on making Arizona a great place to run a business, but also demonstrate to the agencies that, yes, we can work together and we can produce great experiences together. And I hope to really be able to capitalize on that with this project. With that, I want to move kind of looking towards the future, but I want to provide some context of what's been going on in Arizona, and obviously we can always answer any questions you have on that. But Rod, let's jump into our conversation around the future of digital services. Now, yes. Eric shared a slide with me, and I thought this was a great way to start and kind of level set. Okay, so what do we think digital services are, digital government? If you look down this list of the stories of these user journeys and how they completed them, what would you guess, when was this? I'll wait about just 15, 20 seconds. You can type your guess into the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. I'm looking at the chat. Let's see what we get here. JR. All right, y'all, come on. There we go. 1998. 2016. All right. It's a pretty big span there. 20. All right.
All right. The year was 2000. So Tamara, you get the award.
Close to the pin.
It's surprising, right? I mean, I think we've been talking about e-government, digital government, online delivery of services. Can you believe it's been, now more than 20 years that we're talking about this, and still seeking to, deliver better experiences. When you get this deck, folks, that link at the bottom will actually take you out to the NASIO video that was produced around this back in 2000. So that'll be we'll say a fun thing for you to go look at. So Rob, let's talk about what are the implications of the pandemic. I talked about the way I saw it show up a bit in our services, but what do you think the applications of the pandemic to the CIO as broker of digital services?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, and most all of us, I'm sure, have experienced this on the call, right? I mean, the pandemic really forced our hand on digital, whatever that means. It means that, allowing our citizens, businesses, consumers, whoever it might be, to access us within government and do so very quickly and digitally. And many of these services were very critical. You look into health and human services and labor in particular, very critical to our overall states and the citizens in our states. So we faced a very short window where we had to pivot fast. And I will say it was quite amazing to watch. Certainly we participated in that to support many different clients in this way. And we had to do it at a massive scale. So it wasn't just a pace, it was a scale issue. And I will say from our perspective, certainly from mine in the seat I had on the bleachers here, this was something where, different governments were in different places, reimagining what .gov would look like, how that would show for itself. Do we do it in the silo fashion and at individual agencies, or the way you're looking at one stop, JR there from a G to B or government to business standpoint, do we create kind of an omni-channel or a single front door, if you will? So, I think, the takeaway for me, the key takeaway where we stand today as we start turning the corners is, we're really now focused on outcomes more so than requirements, especially using, methodologies like Agile. You talked about a great use case on vaccine. I mean, you were in a race against time. You didn't have a lot of time, but yet did that, focus on the outcome that you needed to drive there and the value that needed to be delivered. And quite frankly, it was very critical when we're talking about vaccines, of course. So all of this sort of wraps up with a bow to me to say, we've been talking about CIO as a broker and how do we keep up with all this different demand and the ways it comes in and the intensity of it, quite frankly. And I think the time is now, right? Really talking about how do we broker those CIO services, really get out and work with these business executives inside these agencies and across the spectrum of those that are serving these different missions and purposes in government and be there with them so they can be more digital. I don't think we're going back. I think that's popular opinion these days to, a brick and mortar or analog way in large part, that we saw in all over the place in pre-pandemic. I think this is the inflection point. And while we've been talking about this collectively in the technology industry for years, I think the CIO as a broker concept will now be embraced by all. So from my perspective, it's a good news story, and we'll start hopefully getting the support we need to move down this road.
Yeah, I think the discussion around outcomes and being value based is super important. Definitely I've had those, that was key to a lot of the conversations that I've been having with I'll say with our even the legislators in our budget office around this next project. Like people want to know, so what am I going to get? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to look like? What problems are you actually solving? And so moving instead of I think we've all had an experience with maybe an application that technically met the requirements, but ultimately didn't solve the problem or wasn't a great user experience. Right. And so I think that's how we're being driven going forward. I saw some of the comments in the chat around as we're going through maybe some of these modernization exercises, digitizing the back end is key to how we then bring that out on the front end. I think those are some great comments. And Mike, I saw your comment around, some folks will think, hey, I produced a PDF and I put it on the website. I digitized it. That is, while it may be better than nothing, I agree that the bar is higher than that now, and we need to do better.
Yeah, and I mean, when we talk about the bar, there's a lot of, concern or confusion. What's that mean, et cetera. The best way I like to think about it is, we're all, citizens as well as consumers, et cetera. And pretty much most of our opinions and views on what an digital experience should look like is shaped by numerous archetypes that are out there now, right? So we look at, buying stuff on Amazon, which, my family does a fair amount of, or doing online banking, or, using Uber and all these types of things, right? These are the things shaping the expectations, the experiences, frankly, whether it's government or in the commercial world, et cetera. It really doesn't matter to the citizen. I think these are the things that kind of shape the expectations when it comes to digital experiences and digital interactions going forward.
Well, I think we've already started to talk about some customer expectations, but how do we see that the new ways of working, expectations around being digital digital first, and any expectations around new service delivery models?
I think so. It's thinking about .com and 21 years ago, and we talked about e-government. I mean, it was all about taking the brick and mortar ways of working and process and service delivery models and automating those. So effectively just taking the way we did those in analog form and making them, making them automated. And then we charge people for that back then, because that experience was a premium experience. It's not a premium experience now. I think we all know that is the experience, the standard experience that I think folks are, everyone's expecting. And when you talk about that and you look at the models and structures of government, many of our governments are still using 20th century ways of working and have policy sets, et cetera, that govern that, et cetera. So there's a fair amount of work to be done on what I would sort of call the business architecture side of things to really get the stage set for success on the digital front. And obviously you got to take these things in steps, right? You can't do it all at once. And that becomes quite overwhelming, particularly when we're talking about this topic. So I would say from a service delivery, going into service design, really kind of thinking, okay, what's the most efficient and effective way to deliver this service given the experience we need to drive? And then looking at those ways of working from a program standpoint. You showed the silos earlier, and I think that's absolutely true. I agree with you. And that's a tough nut to crack, right? To really kind of work through a lot of those silos that were created out of, the 20th century ways of working. And so when we talk about all of this, that business architecture is probably, in my mind, is equally important as getting right the technology side of it as well.
Yeah, and I think I saw some, going back to some of the comments around CIO as broker. The conversations I'm having are around how do we get to more, say some standards. I think to your point, Rob, it's not just the older ways of working in business architectures, but it's also the funding falls into this as well, right? I think we all know that, hey, agency X, they have these monies to do this modernization to which is going to affect this end service. And the monies don't always line up. And so I think the reason we see the artifacts that we see in terms of the way these silos dropping out is because the money was there to do that project and deliver that end result. And so without having, I guess the vision I'm catching is without having a end state that is a shared vision across the agencies, that we start moving towards those things as these individual investments are made. It's not about 100% uniformity, but it is something about unity, right? And directional alignment.
Yeah, I mean, I really like your story around the business one stop. I mean, clearly that's a government to business channel, one of the more popular ones. And you're working towards that, taking it step by step, different use cases, services, et cetera. I mean, of course, you're not gonna have all of them to start with, but once you get that velocity going, you start picking up others that want to be part of that and start adding their services as well. So, it's a good way to think about, and frankly, to get started as well.
Well, so let's talk quickly about what does it look like if we need to come up with a customer-oriented digital strategy. What is that, Rob? As you talk with folks, what are some of the key points you talk through with them?
Yeah, so I mean, this is my personal one as Accenture's as well, pretty strong point of view on this, right? We need to start with the customer, that experience. I often say, to do this right, we need to design for experience. Most of us were trained and are skilled and experienced in designing for systems. It's actually a kind of a reverse way of thinking when it comes to this. I often sort of talked about as an outside in type of model. And really that experience should then drive what kind of services, how do we want to operate, what's that look like to our organization. A lot of great opportunities for our people in terms of new opportunities, ways to redefine the jobs in a way that they're more valuable and frankly, it can help morale. So designing for customers and the citizens, in your case, you started doing that for businesses in the one-stop case, I think is the best way to do that. And again, as we start thinking about customers and what do they need and what's that service need to kind of be like, I can continue to encourage folks to think about these archetypes as a way to mentally kind of process that.
So as we talk about being more customer centric, key issues are going to be, how do we deal with identity? How do we handle privacy? How do we handle trust? I saw some great comments in the chat around, how we handle data and governance in this more unified approach to digital services that is going to be a key challenge. If the funding isn't a hard enough issue and mountain to climb, the issues of who owns the data, who's governing the data, who has access to the data, how do we properly protect it? Those are some serious items to cross, and that's all I'll say more or less hidden from the citizen, right? But ultimately affects them. So how do we approach these key issues?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it earlier on identity, in my opinion. This is not easy, right? And you get into the governance behind it, particularly in these federated models, hybrid models of IT service delivery across most of the states. This is a tough one. Many states are, the pandemic again kind of forced our hand here, in that we had to take some major steps quickly. Many of us did, many states did, to deal with federated identity in a way to really make sure that we weren't just operating digitally and virtually, but we were also doing so securely. I do think this is a big one, JR. Many states are investing significantly, have key initiatives on the books. Some are already underway with major enterprise approaches here. I think this is, to be digital and to deliver digitally, this is the backbone of it. If we don't get this right, it's not going to be successful. So I completely agree with you that we've got to take identity, privacy, and trust very seriously and think about probably first and foremost that governance. Who needs to be involved? How do we get the other agencies engaged in the decision process so they're bought in, et cetera?
All right. I want to keep going because we only got a few minutes left. So, as we've talked about, back end, front end, there's also the axiom, you've seen one state, you've seen one state. Is there a magic bullet for everyone to consider? How do you start to say, well, platform is going to be a part of this. So what kind of platform is best going to support this type of journey that states would need to undertake to really embrace the future of digital services?
Yeah, and I'll just make a couple comments here because I think the main point is there's no. I separate platform from products. A platform is a collection of products, right? And I think what we're seeing in terms of the trend and certainly where things are going here is that each CIO will be really charged with coming up with the kind of the artwork, if you will, of creating the platform to deliver against their needs. And I do think it'll be multi-vendor, right? As it would go for the service catalog and all the different capabilities across infrastructure and the platform and the SaaS, and now coming to a theater near you, BPAS. So when you think about all of that, this would definitely be a multi-vendor type of model. And the broker services, CIO as a broker setup is absolutely the way to get into position, strong position to execute against that.
I agree with you, Rob. I'm on the side of multi-vendor, a neutral approach,
Yep.
the ability to broker services, and something that is distributed that allows people to move at their own pace. Right? I can't be a bottleneck in the process.
Absolutely.
We're at about 1 minute here, folks, and maybe less than that. But this session has gone really fast.
It did.
With a wealth of information. JR, you've done great work. Rob, your facilitation here was superb. Want to remind everybody about a 15-minute virtual hallway discussion after this. And the final session of the day, resilience in state government. That's going to start at 3:45. We got about 10 seconds, 20 seconds here for final comments. Over to you, Rob.
Well, look, thanks everyone for joining. I know this was a kind of a fast clip here. Hopefully it was helpful. Certainly JR and I can be accessible to that, to the extent that makes sense. And from my perspective, I appreciate everyone jumping in and joining us here.
Yeah, my closer would just be, hey, NASCIO community, thank you, because it's, we don't come up with this stuff on our own, right? I have benefited so much from learning from those that have gone before me and those that are walking with me now in NASCIO, both my peers in other states and folks like Rob that come and are willing to share thought leadership with me. So engage on the NASCIO community site in those forums. Share your successes and share your challenges. That's where we all grow. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, JR.